And it looks like we're live. So hello, Facebook. Hello, World Schoolers. I am just going to take a moment to bring this up on my phone so I can keep track of any comments and give you a chance to join us. I did announce that I was going live. I've got a special guest with me here today, and I'm really excited to introduce him. So if you are watching this live, please go ahead and give me a like and let us know that you're here. And if you're watching this in replay, go ahead and put hashtag replay into the comments. I've got this up on my phone. So for most of you that saw the my weekly check-in, I spoke about the conference that I am going to be presenting at just in a couple of weeks, and it's called the Greater Reset. And I went through and I showed you the website and I premised what it's about. But today I have one of the co-founders or founder, I don't know if you did this in collaboration with somebody else. But anyway, I'm really excited to talk to you guys about that. In my check-in last week, I spoke about how it's so incredible that we are disruptors. We come to world schooling through the spirit of wanting to disrupt the status quo in both education and what conventional life looks like. And as families, here we are creating community and have been doing so in such an amazing way. And so for those of you that are watching this interview live, I just want to invite you to sort of separate the left-right thinking and sort of that dialogue that we have been engaged in because of the events of yesterday. And we're talking about solutions, actual activated solutions that will help us step out of a system and create greater communities and more fulfilled lives for ourselves and in community and with our children. So with all that being said, welcome, Derrick. Why don't you go ahead and give us a brief introduction of yourself? I'm so excited you're here.
Yeah, thank you for having me on, Lainie. I appreciate it. And I am I guess you could say, co-founder of the Greater Reset. It's me and a buddy, John, who are working on it. But I'm really happy to talk to you and your community. And this is, of course, the first time we're really getting to speak. So I'm excited about this. But just a little bit of background. My name is Derrick Broze. I'm 36 years old, originally based in Houston, Texas, currently living in Mexico, out here looking for land, trying to build an intentional community. I'm a full-time investigative journalist, independent investigative journalist. I've produced a few different documentaries. I've written 5 or 6 books exploring spirituality and community and solutions. I also co-host a radio show based in Houston called Free Thinker Radio. I write articles, as I said, write books, produce documentaries. Basically, I'm a writer, and that takes the form of documentaries, books, articles, essays, etc., all just trying to explore various ideas about our world, very much solution-oriented, trying to figure out how we can take on some of the problems that we see in the world, whether those are mental, political, personal, spiritual, etc., and how we can, take those on in an empowered way. And I've been doing this for about a decade now, and I'll just share a little bit more kind of prior to this 15 years ago. When I was 20 years old, I got addicted to drugs, and I ended up getting addicted to crystal meth and went to prison about the week before I turned 21. And I spent 2005 to 2008 kind of bouncing in between state facilities, prisons, and things of that sort. And it was in that process that I started to, for one, kind of question how I got there and what I was doing with my life, and looking at a lot of my own kind of interpersonal trauma. And it was also in that space that I discovered meditation and started to just do some of that interpersonal, inner work and healing. And that was kind of the beginning of me generally questioning and looking at the world with fresh eyes, in all kinds of areas, looking at the way that I was brought up, looking at the things I was taught. And, so that kind of started my journey into political activism as well as journalism. But it really kind of started for me first with a interpersonal challenge and awakening.
And I would say that maybe not the same scenario, but many of the families that come to world schooling are there because of some great response to something else. I know so many stories of people that had family members just drop dead, die, unexpectedly. And the realization that came to them was, this is now, and I don't have to follow this sort of ordained convention that I believed that I was supposed to. And part of kind of the journey into world schooling is a lot of that deprogramming. We call it, within the framework of learning, deschooling. And I think that's part of what brought me to your work many years ago, by the way. I've been following you for quite a long time. So I think your journey is just incredible. And before we get into sort of the Greater Reset information and what you're creating, can you talk a little bit about how this is not about left right paradigm? This is not about, kind of you're this or you're that, but this is about a way of really activating and embracing a new way of being in the world.
Yeah, I definitely think that's an important point to make and to focus on because I mean, I can say, just speaking from my own work and the approach that I try to take, it's very much an approach that is politically beyond the left-right paradigm, but also I think not even just related to politics, but obviously like with your group and your organization, you try to help people see outside of the typical parenting paradigm and raising children paradigm. And so I find that it's valuable to step back from the various paradigms and norms that we have been raised in or shown as a kid. Because I know for me, I was raised in a more kind of quote unquote traditional home, going to public school and all these different situations, and uh, maybe parents who didn't understand some of the things that they do now, right? Looking back and wishing they had done things better, like we all do, right? And even with those things, as I've gotten older, and as I said, I had my own experience that caused me to question the world around me. I was able to kind of free myself from some of those paradigms and say, well, it seems like a lot of these things I was taught weren't true, and they're maybe even just outright lies. So how can I step outside of that main paradigm and think with a fresh set of eyes and fresh set of ears and see what else is out there? And I think that's what's really great about what you're doing and why I wanted you involved in the event, is because I do think when we're envisioning a better world and manifesting a better world, which is what our event, the Greater Reset, is all about, thinking about how we as a species and we as community members can come together and individually, but also collectively create a better world, that I believe our duty is to look beyond what we've been shown. We can learn from the past, we can learn from our present situation, but definitely I believe the answers are going to be found in paradigms beyond what we've been shown. So I think if individuals are able to step back from their pre-existing biases and information and just consider information with, again, fresh set of eyes and ears and an open mind and an open heart, then there's a lot to be gained from that, because none of us know the 100% truth about everything or the 100% right path for every single challenge we're going to face. So it seems appropriate for us to approach these things with a little bit of uh, you know openness, but also kind of being just humble about the search for truth. Because as I'm sure you guys have discussed in your particular area, that there are some things that maybe work for some parents and then some things that don't work for others. And it's not necessarily that one is right necessarily or one is wrong, but maybe it's just different situations, different children, different experiences, different environments. So I think that is an important kind of lens to start things with, is that being open to new paradigms, being open to challenge yourself. And in fact, I've actually kind of was posting on social media this morning a little bit of my frustration from my particular line of work as a journalist that does take my work very seriously and tries to stick to the facts and keep an open mind, but also really try to root things in facts and evidence. And my frustration has been that sometimes there are people who are less inclined to sticking to the facts and more inclined to just sharing whatever they feel or whatever they find. And I find that kind of pollutes the search for truth and the search for meaning. So I guess what I'm trying to say there with that is that if we come to these search for better answers, whether that's as parents or just as individuals, and we do it with that humbleness and with that open-mindedness, we can find answers that fit for us. And we can also learn to discard the things that don't work for us.
Absolutely. And I think by you speaking to our community here, you're speaking to a community who is well, sort of tempered into recognizing different worldviews. We see the world through the lens of the people in our host countries when we're in countries that are not our own. And that sort of practice and recognition allows us to really recognize that there are many ways of seeing a particular issue. And I love the fact that you're coming to us as a journalist, because for you, my impression is that truth is sort of that thing that sits outside of perspectives. Yeah. So here's the thing, and then here are the perspectives of how to perceive that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's, we're living in a very somewhat confusing time for a lot of us. There's a lot of information out there. I mean, sure, even within your groups, there might be various debates or topics where people have, strong disagreements about. And like you said, because there's the facts, there's the truth, and then there's the different perspectives that we form around them. And those perspectives are going to be based on our experience, the environment we're in, maybe the mood of the day that we have, because sometimes, you're just in a weird place, and so you buy into something or you say something that you're feeling in that moment, and later on you're like, well, I don't feel that so much anymore, it was just where I was at that moment. But yeah, I do approach it in that way, that I think that there are some facts and some things that we can really root ourselves in, and then there's our perspectives on top of that. And it is important to be open to different people's perspectives, but it's also equally important to know when our perspectives are out of line with the truth and with the reality around us. And that's a whole nother rabbit hole of how we want to define the reality and all that stuff. But yeah, it's definitely important for us to stick to that, because and I would even say, I'm not a parent yet, but in the thought of like raising children, like helping children develop critical thinking skills, helping children develop discernment, and not just simply, one of the things I like to talk about is that I think a lot of the problems we have in the world are are due to the sort of worship of false authorities and belief in authorities, and trusting that, well, it's a principal or a teacher or a politician or a pastor or even your parent, they must know the truth. Where I've always encouraged kids, and sometimes to the parents' dislike, to question authority, even if that means your parents, especially your parents, because that's what I was raised in. My mother told me at a very young age, I remember this stuck with me my whole life. She told me, I don't care who tells you. If somebody tells you to do something and you know it's wrong, I don't care if it's your teacher, principal, etc. These people, if you know it's wrong, don't do it, and I won't be mad at you. You won't be in trouble. She just kind of planted that seed in my head. So, because when you're a kid, you assume like, oh, the parent, the principal's telling me to do something, or the teacher is telling me to do something. They're the authority in this situation, so I need to obey. I need to listen, even if the kid feels like this doesn't feel right. This doesn't go along with what I know to be true. And so that can be difficult for kids growing up to understand, like, well, okay, the authorities say this, but I feel this, and I know this isn't what I'm in alignment with. And so my mom planted that seed early in my head and got me rebelling in school. Maybe she regretted it later, but it got me questioning authority.
No, I think that's a great thing. And I have to tell you, when I started out backpacking with my son 12 years ago, with we both had our backpacks. That was one of our general standard agreements. We were going to question everything. Why are we doing this? Why do we feel like we have to do this? Why is this history being told in this way? And that took us down some really deep rabbit holes. And people in our community know that I talk about that a lot. That has been a theme of mine for many, many years. And yes, this world needs more rebellious people, right? We really, really do. It doesn't mean they have to rebel against their parents. If their parents are in a partnership paradigm, we can rebel together, right? As a unit, as a family, and as partners. So that's really cool. So I want to make sure that we get into, of course, the greater reset, which is why I brought you in here. I do want to let you know first, in our community, the idea of creating like conscious communities and permaculture communities, this has been trending in our Facebook group for months, maybe even years. And that idea and that desire has really heightened. And we've created surveys, and we're starting to, help facilitate different things along those lines. And one of the amazing things that's in alignment with we are world schoolers is that the greater reset talks a lot about permaculture and community building and agorism. So why don't you go ahead and talk about some of the topics that we're going to be touching on in
Yeah,
the
absolutely. And I think you're right. There's a I think there's a trend that has been brewing for the last couple years, but increasingly with the world feeling more chaotic to people, where they want to put their roots down and find like minds. And there's like these memes that go around where it's like, who else wants to grab their 10 friends and go out and build a paradise? It's something I think is in people's consciousness that many of us have felt, but also can, as I'm sure you're aware, can feel very far away for a lot of people as well. So we wanted to provide with the Greater Reset event, which I don't know if we've said this yet, but the website's thegreaterreset.org if anybody wants to learn more about it. We have 5 different days, January 25th through the 29th. Each day is going to be focused on a different topic. And we'll be looking at sort of economics and how can we survive and thrive in, financially, and think about what that looks like in a way that is respectful to individual liberty, bodily autonomy, respecting the planet. So we'll be looking at financial sort of economics the first day. The second day, we'll be talking about health and education, which is the day that you're going to be speaking on and playing a role. I'm really excited about that. And then the third day will be more focused on environmentalism, permaculture, how we can do this in a way that is localized and decentralized. And the third day we'll be talking about the liberating side of technology, some aspects of technology, because as I'm sure your audience is aware, and I've done quite a bit of work on this over the years, digital surveillance and digital surveillance technology, that there are these sort of scary kind of dystopian sides of technology, but there's also lots of really beautiful, powerful projects that have the potential to liberate humanity and to make our lives easier and thrive better. And then Friday, we'll be closing out the event with a whole day dedicated to talking about community organizing, as well as having a few speakers who have successfully built intentional communities in different parts of the world, sharing their knowledge. And yeah, permaculture figures really well into what we're doing. I'm actually wrapping up a permaculture design certification course right now. By the end of this month, sort of the last week around the Greater Reset, I will be officially certified to teach permaculture. And I'm excited about that because, as I mentioned, I'm out here getting land. It's very much important in my life, and it's been a solution for me over the years. I've been involved in various urban farming and community gardening since 2010, and so I very much wanted that to be a part of the message here. And what we're offering with the Greater Reset, the idea is that there are people in our world who have a different vision of how the future might look, and that vision is kind of more centralized, top-down, hierarchical. And I think that there's a way for us to say, okay, well, these people, in this case, the World Economic Forum and their vision of the Great Reset, they are correct that there are many systems in our world that are unsustainable, that are broken down, and that are not serving the people. But I don't believe the solutions they are proposing are going to be beneficial for the majority of people. So we said, how do we tap into this energy, though, recognizing that, yeah, there are a lot of unsustainable systems that COVID has revealed and that many of us are noticing. So how can we tap into that and say, let's manifest a vision that does reflect individual liberty, bodily autonomy, self-ownership, and freedom of choice? And so that's what the event and the 5 days are dedicated to. And to me, permaculture is a big part of that, like being able to work in harmony and balance with the planet, learning those skills, learning how to can your own food, learning how to, just so many different skills that are available to those of us who are seeking them. And we're going to try to bring that in there, as well as lots of practical tips on how to get connected to people. Like what you're doing is already a great idea because you've developed a community for people who are interested in the topics that you're bringing together and the journey that you're on. And then through that, new connections are made, ideas are shared. We need so much more of that all around the world. And that's really what we are encouraging, what we call freedom cells, which some people sometimes refer to these, as I'm sure you're aware, like in the education area, as pods. And this is, I've heard people call them hives, hubs, circles. Ultimately, the concept is what matters. The name is kind of, call it whatever you want, but we're encouraging people to organize in groups of 7 to 8 people in their local area that have like minds and similar goals, to teach each other skills, to share resources, to be prepared for emergencies. Because you could be, I'm from Houston, we get hurricanes, right? So it's just smart to be prepared for that possibility. Maybe there's wildfires, whatever you're dealing with, it's smart to kind of have this core group of people that you can lean on, that can be your kind of your core tribe, your core team. And then at the same time, like say where I'm based at, Houston's a big city. So we have a West Side Houston Freedom Cell. We have a North Side, a Southwest, and then once a month, all the Freedom Cells get together for a big meeting to discuss, what are you guys working on? How's that progress? What skills have you learned? How can we share resources and share ideas? And so this concept is going to be a really integral part of the Greater Reset. And I've been promoting it for about 5 years now. And I can say that in the last year, our website, which is just freedomcells.org, it's just grown exponentially to 9,000 people from all around the world who are making real world connections. We have a map on there where you can search, put your city and search to find people within 20, 50 miles of you. You can search to find groups or cells near you. And then the goal is that we encourage people, don't just stay on the website like Facebook or something. Use the maps, make the connections, and then start meeting in real life and figuring out how we can build these localized, decentralized communities that I believe are really going to be key to our thriving in the future. And so we're going to be exploring lots of those different ideas. And I'm excited because a lot of it will be the people that we've got involved, which is just an amazing lineup with people like yourself. Some of it will be new to me, people who I haven't heard spoke personally. And I'm excited about that to just take in, because I created an event for somebody like me who wants solutions, so I'm going to be very much sitting down with like a pen and a pad, like listening to the talks, very attentive and taking in the information. And I don't know if we mentioned this, but we are encouraging local watch parties everywhere. So wherever you're watching from, get together with your tribe, your pod, your community, and you have 5 days of talks to explore. And our hope is that people will take the information in and then brainstorm, okay, how can we incorporate some of these ideas that apply to us, or maybe adapt them to your specific community? Because I think we're really at that point now where we should be focused on solutions more than ever, not only for ourselves, but for the children, as you guys know, but also for me as an Indigenous person. I really try to speak towards the 7 generations, the generations that are coming after us and the generations that we will never meet, that the decisions we're making today are directly going to impact the kind of lives that they have. So I'm excited for what we're sharing.
Yeah, I am too. And I have to say, I saw when you launched the Freedom Cells, and I thought, what a powerful idea. But for our community, it was not relevant because we were all nomadic and traveling. But now that we're not doing that, I'm going to urge everybody in this community to join. I joined about 6 months ago, and I've been trying to see who's in my local area to be able to create that, which is how we got connected in the first place, which is why I reached out to you and we got connected. But I think it's important. I think it's so vastly important. And I want to ask you one more thing, and you touched on this in what you were just saying. This conference, it's an online conference, it's free online, but it's not focusing on the problems. It's focusing on what you're calling the activations. Can you talk about that sort of shift in approach as to, how this is being produced?
Absolutely. So, yeah, the full name is the Greater Reset Activation. And, I've been speaking at events since 2013, and I've been to a lot of different types of events, conferences where it's just a day full of talks, festivals where it's more kind of party environment with some talks, and every kind of mix in between. And when we were putting this together, one thing was clear, is that we wanted to focus on the solutions. That after being through all these different events, after a while you start to hear the same ideas, you see some of the same people, you see some of the same audience, and it just, to me, I'm like, okay, so we're just going to keep doing this every year. We're just going to, I'm happy to speak and share my ideas, but after a while I feel like, what more can we do? How can we activate people, right? Not just make it where this is a party to come to attend to, or this is just a conference to come sit around and listen to talks. Because I noticed at some of the past events I've been to, there might be talks going on in one room, but people are more interested in gathering and developing that community. So, which I get, like, we want to connect and we want that. And so we're trying to create a space for that by encouraging the watch parties, but also, we're going to talk about, we have an in-person event. And the idea is basically to activate people to see that there are solutions that exist, that it's not just simply about focusing on the problems. Like, there's a time and a place to be educated about the issues in the world. Obviously, that's what I spend a lot of my energy doing with my journalism. My kind of approach has always been educate people with the journalism, inform them through my documentaries, and then hopefully that encourages them to say, okay, well then what do we do now? And then we can focus on solutions. And that's where we're coming to the table with this event. So every day will be one speaker starting the day that's more focused on the quote unquote problems for that particular theme. So like first day is going to be focused on finances and economics. So we'll have a speaker speaking about, here's a vision for what the top down centralized version of the economic world looks like, where all of your transactions are traced everywhere you go. There's no anonymity. There's, lots of these problems. And then the rest of the speakers will be saying, here's the solutions to that. Here's the alternatives to that, right? So on the day you're going to be speaking, we were going to have this awesome woman, a former professor at Tulsa College in Oklahoma. And her name is Julian Romanello, and she's got a wealth of knowledge that are more, I would say, on the kind of problem side of things. Yeah, she's focuses on how just the education system, the flaws in that, which I'm sure are very familiar to your audience, and how it's only probably going to get worse and more centralized as time goes on. And clearly, yourself and other people who are going to be speaking on that day will be offering an alternative to that vision. Well, what are some other ways we can educate our kids? What are some other ways we can raise our kids? What are some other ways we can take care of our health? And these kinds of ideas. So that's the approach we're going to take. Is every day is a different theme. The first speaker will explain the problems and what we're facing for those who might not be familiar with that, while the rest of the speakers will be very much focused on solutions. And I'm excited for it because I don't think there's been too many events that have been done in this way. And we have assembled just an all-star lineup of great speakers from across the spectrum and people from different kind of areas, which was important to us as well, that we're not just bringing one crowd, right? Like it's not just a bunch of permaculture teachers. It's not just a bunch of kind of financial experts. It's a kind of a mix of people from different genres that hopefully each person can learn something from the other speakers, and very much keep it focused on the solutions.
Do you want to share who some of the speakers are?
Sure. So obviously we have you joining us, which I'm excited about. We have Juliana Romanello, who I mentioned earlier, and these are all listed on thegreaterreset.org if anybody wants to go get familiar with them and see their bios and stuff. Dr. Vandana Shiva, who has been doing some great work for quite a while. She's going to be doing a good talk for us. Dr. Mercola is going to be speaking as well. Blanking on a few others. Oh, some of my permaculture friends and teachers. Stephen Brooks is a friend who's my permaculture teacher and friend who's built 4 successful intentional communities across Costa Rica. He'll be talking about that. Ronnie Cummins, he's with the Organic Consumers Association. Many people probably know his organization and not him, but his organization has sued Monsanto over the last decade or so. They've sued a lot of these big, companies that have been destructive to the planet. But also he's here in Mexico, and he's built this amazing permaculture paradise, and he's going to share a lot of his ideas on that. We'll be having James Corbett, who some may be familiar as an investigative journalist and researcher as well. And the list kind of goes on. I think we have about 30 people or so. So I invite everybody to check it out. I think that even if the names are totally new to you and you don't know any of them other than Lainie, that there might be something there for you to gain out of it, right? And again, coming with an open mind, coming with a solutions-based perspective, there can be a lot to gain. And I do want to mention that, so we are going to be gathering in person. So I will actually get to meet and hang out with you in person, which I'm excited about, in Mexico too, which is of course one of my favorite places to be. So the event is completely free to stream digitally online. It'll be streamed at thegreaterreset.org. We'll probably stream it on Facebook and some other places as well. But we are, in addition to hosting and encouraging the local watch parties, I am putting together an event that we're calling the Greater Getaway in Zihuatanejo, Mexico, which is down by the beach. And as far as kind of COVID restrictions go, things are pretty light and easy out here. I think there won't be too much trouble on that. We're going to be about 6 blocks from the beach. We have a nice venue set up that can hold a couple hundred people, and we're already getting quite a few people saying that they're buying tickets and they're coming down. So I don't know what to expect because with COVID times, you never know what to expect. But I think we could get 100 people or more out there, and the goal is come together. We'll have a space where we can project the talks up on a big screen, and then I'll be in person, you'll be in person, a couple others will be in person. So those talks will be given to the people there, and then of course streamed as well. And each night, Monday through Friday, we'll have these talks and presentations. And during the day, there might be workshops like you mentioned. We're also trying to think of different activities people can get into, because there's like parasailing and lots of beach activities for people who want to do that. There's also some local activist groups out there. There's one called Surfers for Strays that does a lot of work rescuing stray dogs. And so we want to see how we can connect to the local community and just give people different things to plug into. But if you want to come and just hang out at the beach and then come to the event at night, do that as well. It's going to be totally open for people to experience like they choose. But and I will say the event is only $30. So if you can make it to Mexico, it's just $30 to be in person with the rest of us. And then if you would prefer to stream it online with your friends and family, that is completely free for you to do so.
And that was my big announcement, that I'm going to be there live, joining everybody. And if there are any world schoolers, and I know that we have a thread of everybody who's in Mexico, I know you're not in the local area, but I would like to host a world schooling get together, and it's casual, whether you come to the conference at night with your kids or not, it's not important. I would like to do some meetups on the beach, and I am going to be offering a free or by donation, if you wish to donate, family culture workshop. So I'll help you guys unpack some of these big emotions around all of these changes. So that is my big announcement. I will be there that week. And let's go ahead and just keep that thread of people in Mexico sort of, active and people excited. And I do want to stress that this is not the Project World School Family Summit. That will probably still happen in March. So we're still looking for locations for that. But this will be more of a casual free meetup just to come and be in community, because I know I could use a hug because I miss people. So yeah.
A lot of people are feeling that right now, I think,
Yeah.
just the desire to be together. So that's another reason why we wanted to do that, because I think that there are people who would prefer to that if we never meet again, if we don't ever feel that oxytocin from a hug and or a smile or face to face, and so it's very important that we do that. And so we wanted to encourage that. And yeah, I'm excited to be down there. And I also want to just throw this out there because I really appreciate that you initially reached out to me as far as offering the same services you were kind of just sharing there, like helping people integrate, helping families. Because one other thing that I'll just briefly mention is that I have been helping people get down to Mexico, those who are just interested in seeing what's going on in Mexico, maybe concerned about the direction of the US, or just people who want to get away from just take a breather, let's say. And so the past few months, we've been doing caravans of people coming down. And that's when you reached out to me and kind of sharing that, how you would like to help and offer that. And I really appreciate that, because the most recent caravan we did a couple of weeks back were the first families that came with us. Up to this point, we'd had individuals, but the last trip we made, it was two families with, children from 20 till 4 or 5 years old, kind of in that range. And so there was two families that both had young kids and both had, early teenagers, and were able to connect. And they came with us down to Mexico. So we're also very much trying to figure out how we can build community out here where I'm at, both like physically on the land, but also just community, those of us who are in the same city, like how we can support each other, whether you're an individual, you're a parent, you're a child, etc. And so I just wanted to throw that out there, and that I do appreciate you offering those services, not only sharing that with our community, but just to all the people that you share that with.
Oh, my pleasure. This brings purpose to my life, and I'm glad to be of service. So thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for taking the time out in your afternoon to come and present to our community. It's been a pleasure to connect with you.
Yeah, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you everybody who's listening.
Fantastic. I'm going to stop the stream.